Okay, so now that we have our first section of our street done, now let's go ahead and just quickly dive over to the other side of the street, start making that section, and after that we will have, I think I wanted to do like, so I want to have a street here and a street here, which means that I will probably have like 2 more buildings behind it, and then I will have like a long street, and then we just have like a skyscraper view over here. That's the general idea I have in my head. It is very good to have like an idea in your head. Now, of course, it's a little bit unfair for me to say because I already made this environment before. But in the beginning, I'm trying to show you how I think about things, even though I technically already know exactly how I'm going to make stuff. But anyway, what we are going to do is we have over here our pavement. And let's have a look. So if we just grab... Yeah, we can probably like grab one of these also. But mostly what I'm thinking about is that where do I want to have like the street? I think I want to have my street start, and you need to see how big you want your building to be. I think I want to have my building to be around this size over here. So let's have my street start over here. So if I duplicate this, and if I then go ahead and just rotate this 180, and now of course what you need to do is you need to move it back and quickly just like align it here, because you do want to have these curves to be aligned. Now I know that over here I need to actually align it up until this point because I will have like a corner piece. But what I can do now is I can roughly try to define how big I want my road to be. Now I should have, as far as I know, I have like a tarmac prop. I just need to see. I think it was in my saves folder over here. Yeah, it is in here. So what I will do is I will actually drag this into my models folder. Let's move it here. The reason it is in my saves folder is because we applied displacement on it using nanite. And when you do that, it will always throw it into like a different folder. So now if we go into our models folder, we should have this one. And if I have a look, okay, for some reason this is really small. It is actually supposed to be like 10 maybe. You can see. So what we are going to do is let's go ahead, because I can see roughly how big this needs to be, because you can see it by the tarmac textures. So what we would do is we would go ahead and go to grab a car, for example. So I have my city sample vehicles imported. Let's say that I grab like a basic car. Let's do this one over here. And then based upon that, I can see if the tarmac is too big or too small. So let's set this to like 15. Now, the reason, yeah, I think 15 is quite nice, and that will also roughly fit the size of my road. Now, the reason that this plane was so small, it is a trick. If you ever want to do nanite and you want to push a lot of polygons into like a really large area, because this is like these are a lot of polygons. If I go to nanite visualization and triangles, you can see that these are a lot. So if you ever want to do that, if you ever want to apply some nanite, but you want to apply to a very large area, you want to still have a lot of polygons, temporarily scale down your area, apply your nanite and scale it up again. It's the same trick as that you often use in ZBrush in order to use the Dynamesh mode. So if you ever use ZBrush, I mean. But basically, that's why we would need to scale this plane up. But once we have scaled it up, we can go up here and just set it roughly to this side. It's also nice to set it over here. And this will give us like a handy reference. Now I'm going to temporarily turn off my snapping. Oh no, wait, actually I don't need to do that. I'm going to just later on lower down this plane. For now I will just move it manually. But later on we are of course going to delete this floor over here. So before I want to start placing my curb, I need to have some measurements. Now what kind of measurements are these? These are that I know that there will need to be a car, and I'm just going to turn off my snapping, that needs to be parked. So I know that we will need to have space for cars to be parked. Then I know we will need to have some space for cars to be driving. Then I know we will need to have like a center line. So if I go, for example, to my decals, let's go over here to Vertex Punk, decals, materials. It should be in here. You would think that it is in here. Let's see, which one do I need? So we have the damaged. I'm looking for like the road lines. However, I find those a little bit tricky to find. Maybe they are in material. Oh yeah, that's confusing. Let's drag these just to do a little bit of cleanup into my materials folder of my decals. Because that's a little bit confusing. And then the decal master we would need to rename 02 because you cannot have the same name in the same folder, of course. So now we can move it. There we go. Sorry about that. I'm just going to delete this folder. I'm going to wait until after I've saved my scene to delete that folder because else you get an error. And now we have this line and I want this, let's say that we make this like a solid line over here. And you can see we can simply drag this in. Now if you press G to go into game mode, you can see that there's this green box. This box defines if you want to have something overlaying over here. Because I do not want to have this decal interacting with anything but the road, I'm just going to kind of like move it down a little bit more. Over here. And now what we are going to do is, so let's say we have this is not going to be like a very wide road. So we have our cars that are parked. We have over here our car that is driving. Then we would have some lines over here. Then we would simply have another 2 cars that are roughly over here. And based upon that, I know that, let's move this one a little bit down, that I can grab my curb and I should move this into like a different folder. So give me 1 second. I will do this. Add a new folder. Curb _ 02. Now you might notice that sometimes it adds the folder under your parent folder. You just want to drag it onto your tutorial scene over here. And when you do that, we have curb 2. And now we can simply move this forward. And there we go. That is often how I define the scale of my road. Now, of course, this is the quick way of doing it. If you want, what I also tend to often do, depending on how precise I need to be, is I literally go to Google. Let's say that I need to make a road in New York. I literally go to Google and I just type in something like average road width in New York. And I know for a fact that this is roughly the average road width. It's not exactly the same. Because, of course, we are kind of like just trying to go for a pretty picture. We are not trying to go for hyper accuracy over here. It's just creating something very cool. But you can go super detailed if you want. You can literally go to Google, find all of the metrics and everything for roads, lane widths, and even for like the width of like these lines and all that kind of stuff. It's just for us. I want to keep this nice and simple. I don't want to overwhelm you with that kind of stuff. Now that we have this one, we can go ahead and we can go up here. Oh, make sure to have snapping turned on before you move. If you have moved a little bit and then turn on snapping, it will no longer work. But now we can go in here. We can grab a little corner. There we go. And if you want, we can... So this one is now perfectly aligned. We can then go ahead and rotate this. Move it over here. Use a straight version. And how much? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay, let's just move this. Shall I move this building back that far? Or shall I go for like 3? I think I want to go for 3. And then we are just going to place like some cubes next to this, which kind of like define, oh no, but this is where the building, where there's like another building. So there would be like an imaginary alleyway roughly in this location. Let me say it like that. These are not aligned, are they? No, they are not. And they are not because there's some scaling going on somewhere. Ah yeah, here there's some scaling going on. Let's set this back to 1. Actually, these ones we can delete. That can happen. Remember about the scaling. So it's fine to keep that scaling, depending on how our building will look. So over here, now this is nicely aligned. And if you want, you can do one last quick corner. You can do the same over here. One last quick corner. And at that point, we will not be able to see anything. At least not for our scene. And you can just keep going. Like if you want, you can just close this off. You can make the building look all the way around. It's all up to you. So, we now have our cars over here. And we have our pavement. For this building, let's go ahead and let's have a look what we have. Let's go into our buildings folder under the Emil Sliegers folder. And then we can go in here and this one, no, this is like a corner piece. I don't think I want to have a corner piece. Maybe this one. To be honest, I also don't really like that. Number 6. Interesting. You know what? I think I am gonna go again for number 06. I know that we used it here, but what we will do is we will swap out the texture and place some scaffolding in front to not make it seem like it's the exact same building. And what we will do is we will of course just change like these pieces over here. Now, since we are going to reuse this building for this, we can simply go ahead and let's go in here, building 2, select immediate children. We can go ahead and Ctrl C, Ctrl V and duplicate all of them and immediately just throw them in building 3. Building underscore 03 in the folder. Drag this onto your tutorial scene and it will still keep your selection after you duplicate it. So what we are going to do is we are going to have this building sit nicely over here. However, I actually want to go ahead and I want to replace this with windows and over here I want to change it with the door. But I know that this door is exactly the same scale as 2 windows. So we don't actually need to do that now. We can just go in here. And another thing is that if we want to have scaffolding next to this, we will need to go for a bigger pavement. We simply cannot go for like such a small pavement and then have entire scaffolding. For the rest, it looks pretty good in terms of like the scale of my curbs. So if I go in here, duplicate this, and the annoying thing is that when you duplicate, it will snap the pivot to the very first selected object. So we can go in here, swap this one out. I can see that I have a little this mismatch is because of my scaling. Yes, it is. Which means that I can just kind of like go in here and set my scaling to 0.0. Let's not do 0.06. Let's do 0. Oh, sorry, I have the wrong one selected. 0.08. There you go. No one will notice. So yeah, as I said before, keep in mind, pretty picture. This is definitely game level. Like you can walk around and everything, you can preview it. However, we are gonna go just for like a nice picture, just to save a little bit of time, rather than having a fully fledged game level, because that can often take like 100 hours or more just to get that working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it roughly around here, and I'm quite happy with this scale. I can now go in here and I can go ahead and duplicate this. And you know what, I'm just going to move it like this and change it with my flat version. And if you want, you can like try and sort of line it up. Here, if I turn off my snapping temporarily, I can try to just line it up a little bit like this. And then I'm just going to use my snapping, because at this point you probably won't even see this anymore. Yes, over here if you want, or you can kind of just like leave it, but you can add an extra corner piece over here. Of course, what I would not be doing at this point is I would not do any type of fancy scaling. Over here you can also see, for example, that we have some problems with this one. But at this point, maybe I just do this quickly and I'm just leaving it, because you cannot see that. See, even if we go all the way up here, it will be so difficult to see that area that I'm just going to kind of like leave it. I know it might seem lazy, but I like to call it smart, because it is something you often will need to do also in the game industry, because in the game industry you have very strict deadlines, and that's how I treat this, as if I have a strict deadline, because I don't want to make a 20-hour long tutorial. That will not be good for anyone. You won't learn anything new, it will just be boring. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to not make anything I cannot see. And I just wanted to explain to you the logic behind my decisions. I'm trying to do that as much as possible, to explain the logic, even though some things you might go against. You might think like, yeah, but it has to be perfect and stuff like that. It's always good to make everything look perfect, especially if it's for your portfolio. But of course, as I said, there are limits to what you need to do, and they are on a project basis. It all depends on your project, what your limit is. Now at this point, what I can do is I have my ground floor over here, and I can just swap it with a window. And then make sure that snapping is turned on. It should fit perfectly another window. There we go. Okay, so yeah, we got these windows, and this is one of those cases where, as I said before, it might feel a bit boring because we only have windows, 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 but we are going to have like some scaffolding against it, and by that point, you won't really notice it anymore, that there are only windows, because there's so much stuff in front of it. So what we can do over here is let's make the door here, because it would still be nice to have like a door. And there we go. So we got these pieces. It's just the ground floor. We are going to work on this a little bit more later on, of course, creating an entire building. But that's looking pretty good. Now, we know that over here, if we duplicate this and duplicate our road, that we can rotate this. And this road is going to be the same size, yes. Or do we want to make this like a smaller size road? Sometimes you can see, like, if this is going to be like the main road, of course it makes sense to sometimes have smaller roads. In these instances where you are not sure, I'm looking more at composition. I look that if I know that my main shot is going to be roughly around this area over here, that we have like this shot, as you can see, looking down the road. And this shot I did not make up. This shot is also in all of these references. See? Down the road, slightly sideways, but down the road. So it is a common shot that happens. And at this point, I just want to have this building kind of like sticking out, as you can see over here. So that's more my idea for this. I feel like that for now, let's leave the road this large, and then we can always change it later on. So we have this road over here. I'm going to move it back a little bit more, like that. There we go. That should do the trick. Now, we can pretty much just duplicate this pavement, because at this point we know roughly the standardized metrics for all of our roads. So we can right click, select immediate children in pavement number 02, and we can simply duplicate this, move this over here, new folder, curb underscore 03. I don't know why I call it a curb when technically it's more pavement than curb. And for the people that don't know, because maybe you're not a native English speaker, this is the pavement. This thing on the end is the curb. Just, I don't know. I figured I should tell you. So, okay. We have this pavement over here. And yes, it is long, but that's fine, because I want to stick my building out a little bit. And in terms of like the scaling, yeah, like this is pretty much accurate. If you want, you can mess around and you can give it like the tiniest extra bit of scale, but we are going to have a road here, so I guess it all kind of depends on how we are going to use this end piece. If we want to go ahead and just move this a little bit more like this, and then we would again need to like move this maybe 1.06, move this, and then it is nicely aligned. Oh, I don't know why sorry about that. 1.06. Why my keyboard shortcut was there. Move this, and this one will probably not be 1.06 because these are already scaled a little bit. So 1.075. No, 1.08. There we go. So now we know that this pavement is correct over here. We can once again right click, select immediate children. And then we can nicely just move this over here, and I'm just trying to line it up with my grid line, as you can see over here. So that's a handy thing about having this on the floor. We can still guess how everything looks. And at this point, I'm going to just temporarily delete this one. Okay, awesome. So we got that. Now for this building, what I'm going to do is we are going to go for like a more of like a special building, because I want to have like this canopy and like this really big sign on here. So, knowing that for this building, what I will do is, let's see, number, I want to have number 8 behind this building, because it has only corner pieces. So we probably want to go for this one. we probably want to go for number 10 in terms of our building. And this time it is probably important to start with our corner piece, ground floor corner, because it's like a really, really large corner. And I'm going to then have one window piece, so let's duplicate this and add a ground floor window over here. And now we can kind of guess. So at this point, I know it's getting close to the end of this chapter. What would be good is to set your camera roughly here. Go down here and create a camera here and create a camera actor. Now what you can do with this is you can go from perspective to your camera actor, which will show your camera. Make sure that your aspect ratio is 1920 by 1080. It's just a aspect ratio we want to use. And your field of view, I always like to go a little bit closer in. So let's set this to around 70. For now, we will probably change it later on. And then we can roughly see where we want to have our camera. So it's roughly over here. Let's see. Let's go a little bit closer. Let's go 60 probably. There we go. So let's go for 60. And now based upon that, I can go and grab my building. I can move it forward over here. I still feel like 60 is really... I don't know. Something feels off with 60 even. But I don't want to go too extreme, because if you go too extreme it will... I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Just trying to kind of like match this kind of feel that I have over here. Let's go, yeah, you know what, let's stick with 60 for now. Over here. And then we can also guess how we are going to have our road. You know what I will do? Is I think I'm going to actually make my road a bit smaller, yes? Because I want to have my buildings a little bit closer. I want to have them feeling like they are sitting roughly over here. So what we will do is, let's quickly undo that movement. Let's make this road to only be like a 2-lane road. No parking allowed. Let's do that. So we can go ahead and we can grab these pieces and move them over here. Give it like a little bit of extra space just in case. And then what I can do is I can right click, select immediate children, select curb tree. I'm going to move that one here. And I know that that does mean that we no longer are aligned over here. Let's see. So we have this building. Then behind this we are going to have another building. Then we are going to have a street. And then we are going to have another building. Which means that if I go ahead and... Does this happen to be aligned? Ah, nice. That's aligned with this curve. So if I go ahead and move this to align with this grid point. One more over here. There we go. Then all I need to do is just duplicate this one. Ta-da! Perfect. Okay, awesome. So I'm actually really surprised that that fits so well. So we have this one. Now we have our building over here. What I'm going to do is our building is going to be like a single pavement building. So let's nicely just set this on like the corners of your pavement, pretty much. And you can kind of see where our corners are. So maybe like one forward. And now we can go to our camera actor. Yeah, that feels quite nice. That feels like a good distance and scaling. And it's also interesting that we have like bigger road and then like a smaller road and then like an alleyway. And then we will have again like a bigger road or smaller. No, then we are going to have like a smaller road and then later on a bigger road again. So it's all about variation. I'm really trying to get at home that you want to try and add a lot of variation because it makes things look simply interesting. So what we can do is we can go ahead and say this is going to be a just like a medium scale building, something like this. And then we will have again like a corner piece. And then we might have like a very small building behind it. So, or next to it, sorry, next to it. So we can go 90. Over here. I don't know why it's flickering so much, even though it's not overlapping. So over here we are just going to have like something that is built against this building. I'm just going to kind of like cram it in there. And that will actually look a little bit interesting because it does make it feel a bit more Japanese. That there's all of a sudden like this really small building just kind of like sticking in there. Although we are not going to go for a Japanese style, we are just going to go for a random style more. And in this case, when we say random, we mean like, well, cyberpunk, sort of, something like that. So over here we can just have like another corner, and let's leave it over here. That is totally fine. Okay, so we got this one. As I said before, for this building, we are just going to go for something a bit more interesting, but small. Let's go in here, and let's just use like a single door over here. And let's just move it back so that we have like a little space. These spaces are always really nice if you ever want to have like a trash can or just like a bench or something. It's like a great area to do that kind of stuff. Then we are going to duplicate this. Use a corner piece. And then we are simply going to duplicate this again and maybe like use a window piece over here. And we might need to, I don't know, can we do snapping? Let's set this to 1, and else we just need to do a vertex snap. You can always rely on the vertex snap in the worst case scenarios. Yeah, so over here I will say that this snapping has been not perfectly made. But then what we can do is we can go ahead and hold, let's go here and hold V. And tuck, there we go. That's it. It's just like a very quick snap. And now we can go ahead and just go in here and maybe like end this piece. And maybe have like another door piece here. I know that you can never even see it. See, let's do a door piece here. But just in case. Like, don't get me wrong, I have the urge to just make this all perfect and make it completely all the way around and everything and make everything just perfectly fit. But the thing is that I just don't have the time to do that stuff. And it's just like a deadline. So sometimes you need to make these compromises, even though they go against your nature. Because I know that as artists, we probably all want to try and make everything look absolutely perfect. But we are just going to go ahead and make the final result in terms of images really nice. And then, of course, in this case, it matters a lot that I'm teaching you to how to do all of this stuff. So there we go. We now have like these two nice buildings. So it's starting to look like already a bit of a street. I know that, of course, all the mood and stuff like that will come way later, where we have like our neon signs and our lighting, and then it really starts coming together. For now, you just kind of like need to look past it and just need to look at the ugliness, so to speak, of having like weird shadows and basic lighting and stuff like that. But at this point, we can go ahead and set this one, for example, to 100. We can simply duplicate this a couple of times to create our tarmac road over here. And then over here you can simply grab this one and set this one to like snapping of 10. And it's okay if this one overlaps a little bit. It's nanite, it does not really matter. Like you will never notice with such small noise. But there we go. So now we have already like a basic road going on. Awesome. In the next chapter, what we will do is we will start working on defining this street, which will probably also become like a tin street. And then we will have the two buildings next to it. Then we have a big street, and after that point it's really easy. After that point it's just placing some bigger buildings and stuff like that. And then finally we have our layout. We will double check our work. And then we are actually going to start by building up these buildings and creating height. So let's go ahead and save our scene and continue with this in our next chapter.